Welcome everybody to the July's monthly webinar from Lumar. This month we're talking about optimizing large multi-category websites with Joe Fisher from Uptake Agency. Very excited to have everybody here. Hello, Arena. Good to see everybody. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes just to arrive. I'm just scrolling through names now. Hey, Kenny. Nice to see you, Kenny. Oh, just before we start, Joe, you might just want to hide the Zoom is sharing your screen thing.
Very good point.
There we go. There we go. It's all right. You begin to forget what's real and what isn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's modern world.
Yeah. Hey, Pedro. Multiple people arriving now that we that are names that I know. Good to see everybody. People from all over the place. Good morning to people in the US. Afternoon to everybody over in Europe. So over in Europe, that's where I am. Cool. Okay. Let's get started then. Joe, if you could just click on, I believe you're driving.
I am indeed.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, most of you, I say most of you will know me. That's arrogance, isn't it? Hi, my name is Chris Span. I'm a senior technical SEO at Lumar. Been in the SEO industry for about 15 years or so now. Been working for Lumar for about 4 years. And I'm joined by Joe today. Joe, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm a SEO consultant. Been in the SEO industry for around about a decade now. So yeah, well in. And Fisher SEO is my company. Just started getting a few supporting people in, so starting to try and scale a bit like this presentation.
Fantastic. Okay, so if you could just click forward one slide, please. I'll just quickly run through the agenda. Dead simple. If you've seen one of our webinars before, you'll know the agenda. Introductions and housekeeping initially, that's where we are now. Then we'll be moving into definitions and website types, then main mistakes, scaling with entry points, examples of scaling, summary, and then Q&A. If you have a question while the presentation's going, feel free to drop them into the chat. We might not answer them directly during the call, but we will do our best to get to them at the Q&A section in the end. Joe, if you could just click forward one more for me. I've just said about the questions. There'll be a feedback form at the end. It takes less than a minute to complete. Please do it. Tell us that you liked it. Tell us that you didn't. The more that you tell us, the better we can make these. And the on-demand version of this will be shared in a couple of days via email once it's edited and subtitled. Yep. Speaking of subtitles, we do have live Zoom closed captions. You can click on the CC icon in your Zoom toolbar. If you can't see it, you might need to click on the more icon, and then from the icon choose show subtitles. There's also live transcripts, which you can do. And as I say, the webinar recording will be distributed in a few days. Right. Before we start, I always like to ask the class a question. And this week, the question is, how well do you think your current website is structured? You're going to be getting a pop-up on the screen now, and just be interested to see where people land on this. I think, Joe, you probably find this when you're working on large websites, people assume everything's like perfect and the structure is fantastic. Realistically, what normally happens is as an SEO, the first thing you do is find like 4,000 pages that haven't been seen for the last 10 years or something. So
Yeah, I think it's a bit like in a supermarket when that's why the shelf stackers is constantly reshuffling the shelves.
yep,
It just
yeah.
never ends.
And constantly CRMs are being changed and things like that. So it's always interesting to find out kind of how people view their sites. Excuse me. Okay, so I should be getting the results. Okay, so nobody at all said very well structured, couldn't be improved. A couple of people said, I don't know. 5 people said not structured at all. It's a mess. I feel you. Vast majority of people, 80%, said partially well structured, could be improved. So I reckon, yeah, this is what we're talking about, right, Joe? It's just kind of most websites have kind of a decent grasp of what they're doing, especially if they've got an SEO team involved. But other than that, quite often there's stuff in the background that needs fixing. So thank you very much for that. At this point, I'm going to keep quiet. I do still have a little bit of a sore throat, and I'm going to pass over to Joe to start the presentation.
Cool. I'm glad no one put very well structured because mine's not. Mine could be improved, and I'm an SEO guy, so yeah, it makes sense. There's always room for improvement for everyone. So yeah, first sort of section, just wanted to run through definitions and the different types of websites this is applicable for. So a quick outline of the webinar. These are the sort of outcomes I want you to get. I want you to gain more confidence and gain a few techniques which are not too technical in premise, but when you're scaling a website, particularly large multi-category ones, this is still applicable to smaller, fewer category or single category businesses, but it's just easier to scale using the techniques I'll show you later on for the large multi-category businesses. And as I mentioned, it is technically relevant for all sizes of websites and all types of businesses. So not just e-commerce, also relevant for service-based businesses, SaaS, publishers, and a combination of the two. So if it's a service and an e-com business, it'll still be relevant. Larger websites with more categories should reap the rewards from these techniques faster and more effectively, just because they've got more content, more coverage. But as I mentioned, applicable to everyone. So don't drop out now if you've got a smaller website. That's what I'm saying. Reasons why I chose this topic, very simply, there's a lot of information going about the SEO space and digital marketing in general, particularly with AI floating about. So it works. Essentially, I've tested it. It works. There's proof behind it, proof of concept. And yeah, that's quite rare, I think, for a lot of techniques in SEO at the minute. Shout out to my old agency. Before I went independent, Blink SEO, they actually conducted a study with, I think it was hundreds of websites, particularly e-com on Shopify, and they found out that 60% of the organic revenue comes from category pages and product collection pages, not purely blog posts or product pages. So people discover a brand through the category page rather than the product page. And reason number three is not much of a complex concept. Like you could explain it to someone fairly simply. And once you start thinking with this principle, you'll notice so many opportunities for every website that you end up going on. Cool. So I just wanted to make a few definitions from the title. So when I'm talking about scaling, I'm talking about for SEO. So that means growing a website's organic visibility in a sustainable manner. So not any shortcuts, not any black hat techniques. And it works very well for websites which have high amounts of product coverage or service coverage or content coverage, really. Multi-category websites or any websites with two or more categories. So these could be product categories, service categories, software categories for SaaS, and then topics for published sort of based businesses. When it comes to large websites, that can be quite subjective, but generally across Google, it seems to be 10K plus is classified as a large website, 5K is a medium website, anything less than that is a technically small website. But again, depends on the industry, depends on the website. Okay, so when I'm talking about large multi-category websites, e-commerce is the first discipline. So an example there is IKEA. Everyone uses this example, so I've been a bit lazy, but I've chucked it in. They obviously do sofas, chairs, tables. So they're the parent categories, and then they also categorize them into child categories. So they do different colors, different room types, and different brands. Little image of their mega menu there, so you can see you can shop by room and you can shop different product types as well. So this is the sort of thing when I'm talking about multi-categories. And here are services as well. So I'm just taking my website just to give it a plug as an example. So it's a multi-category service website. So I do technical audits, I do content, internal linking plans, and they're categorized into different elements of SEO. So there's the content side, technical side, and link building side. But then I also do SEO for different industries. So like SEO for retail, SEO for hospitality, SEO for e-commerce, and then website sizes as well. And there's a cheeky plug of my main nav as well. And then SaaS. So I've used Shopify as an example. So Shopify, I kind of think when I think of Shopify, they just do websites, but they actually do websites. You can buy apps, you can buy domains, and you can also buy hosting. So it's a multi-category SaaS website, and they can be categorized into different parts of a business's journey when they're building a brand, when they're growing. You can get them as a one-off purchase or a subscription, and they're all sort of for ecom, but different types of ecom businesses can buy these. And here's a sneaky preview of Shopify's main of as well. So you can sort of see it's not just a single product or service and a single industry that we're sort of looking at with this. So here are the main mistakes I've seen time and time again when people are scaling multi-category websites. There are obviously other mistakes that do crop up, but particularly scaling. So the number one mistake coming in at gold is a low number of products or a lack of service coverage or content coverage. And that essentially means if you've got an e-commerce website and you create a new product category and there's one product on there or there's two products on there. So the users and Google uh, can, saying this in a bit of a bad way, but can sort of tell that the category's been made for the sake of it, and it's not complementing UX as it should do. So only we don't want to BS Google essentially. We need categories with high product coverage, and that also complements service businesses as well. So if you create a service landing page and there's clearly not enough of a knowledge or substantial enough content on that page to justify that landing page being created. Where are they? That's what Google's showing when there's not enough content on there. Mistake number two. So I see a lot of very close duplicate pages created. Tends to be with programmatic SEO. It's happened exponentially more since ChatGPT came into the foray and AI came into the picture. So near duplicate pages being created that are far too similar product or service wise or software wise for SaaS. So two product categories which have got exactly the same products on or different products, exactly the same content, very similar titles, all that sort of stuff. And it does cause cannibalization and they both end up struggling.
I think as well, sorry, just to jump in there, Joe, that comes back to your first point as well, in the kind of over filtering of content down to only small things. If you end up with a red dresses page and a green dresses page, and the entire offering for both of them is the same dress, but one's in red and one's in green, you've over filtered. And I think some SEOs and some business owners, like the first time they do like a bespoke landing page for something a little bit niche and it really works, all of a sudden you've got a new hammer and everything looks like a bespoke landing page shaped nail, right? And you get
Yeah.
down to the point is that, well, what about red dresses that are kind of knee length, but you could wear in the summer as well because they're not too warm? Oh, what do you mean that's not right? So yeah, it's about recognizing where you've got a wealth of good different content or product to offer.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but I keep coming back to like the physical store example in my head where imagine if you walked in a store and you saw like the same red dress 10 times but with a different label on it, like a slightly different table sort of thing, you'd just be like, they're taking the mick, they're trying to position it. So that's why I've used the Alan Partridge meme of they've rebadged it, you fool. So it's like if you see it, you'll probably see cars a lot, like they change one tiny thing and then add 10 grand on to keep selling it. So yeah, we want to avoid that. Main mistake number three, this isn't so much a mistake. It's more it doesn't create an environment where the page can thrive as easily as others. So if there's no current organic standing for the queries, no impressions for the desired queries in Search Console for the parent pages. What I mean by that is, say if you've got a dresses category, like Chris said, and it's got red dresses in there. You might have one red dress in there, but it's getting 0 impressions for red dresses. Google's crawlers and algorithm is clever enough now to determine the intent of a page and contextualize it. So it should start to trickle in with a few impressions for these potential subcategory pages. If it's not done that, then there might not be a potential for it. And yeah, so that's just creating a random page like that red green dresses one you just said. What the hell is a polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? Mistake number 4, too broad keyword targeting and lack of structure. I've kind of smushed in 2 mistakes into one element here. So this is when the search landscape's too competitive for the term, and the page is not being positioned in the website, in the navigation, effectively reducing crawl efficiency, making it hard to find for Google, essentially. So for example, I think I'll put an example here. Yeah, I found a brand called Laura James. Um, this page is just optimized for dining tables, and I think it was on page 6, I believe. I can't remember when I got this example, but imagine this category, but it's only got 3 products in there, and they're all one brand, all one type of dining table. For these really broad terms, the brand needs to be really strong for one, and the product listings need to be really strong. They need to see a lot of product variants. Um, so I really just wanted to get an example where someone's optimized for dining tables. It might not be the best example, but it does sort of apply. It's like I've seen brands before where they just have 3 similar products and they're trying to rank for chairs, and it's far too competitive. That's when you need to look at these sorts of techniques that I'm going to show. Here's an example. This is my little side hustle comedy website that I'm starting to build. And I've purposely made the menu and the structure terrible. I promise it won't just me doing it. Um, so I've created pages for individual keyword comedians on this website, but there's absolutely zero structure. They all just come under the comedians. There's no hierarchy really. There's no they're all trying to rank for the comedian's keyword, if you like. So you need to see some sort of horizontal linking structure and a vertical linking structure. I don't know if you wanted to ask this bit, Chris.
Sorry, I'm mumbling away on mute. Poll question number 2. So as Joe's just talked about, how unique are all your commercial pages compared to the rest of them? You've got 3 answers. You've got all completely unique, all around 75% unique, and copy and paste job, brackets, lazy hoster. Again, we'll wait to see what people say. I think it's fair to say there's always going to be a little bit of shared DNA, I guess, between pages, especially when you are kind of creating similar products page or similar product categories to each other. And I think sometimes a lot of that just comes down to like branding, for want of a better word, right? It's just it's or at least a tone of voice type thing. But yeah, the amount of pages that I still see now where it is like again trying to rank for every city in the country, and it's the same content with just Manchester in place of Preston, in place of whatever, and that used to work back in the day. Not so much nowadays. Just waiting for the results to roll in, and we will crack on. There you go. So yeah, that's about what I expected, I suppose. 11%, say a copy and paste job. 14% say all completely unique, and 75% say around 75% unique, which I think quite often is the best we can hope for as an SEO, right? Or, at least that's the minimum we should be aiming for. So back over to you, Joe.
Well, that's interesting that it was 75% because that's very close to the number that I'm going to bring up in a minute. So
Okay.
that this is the main concept of the whole webinar, really. This is where the most value can bring. So with a lot of my clients, especially recent ones, I've tried loads of different SEO techniques and additional entry points, which is a very fancy way of saying new pages. Um, Seems to be the highest reward and lowest risk. So when I'm kind of stuck for what to do for a website, and I don't just want to bang out some image alt tags just to make the client happy and just send them something, then this seems to be the one technique which makes the client happy, makes me happy, makes them more money. Seems to work all around. So yeah, a few other benefits of new pages slash additional entry points. Helps Googling users understand your positioning, helps which industries a service website actually provides for, helps them understand what products are actually good for and the attributes. Focuses on higher intent commercial searches, which you don't currently rank for well. You don't have to develop any new services, you don't have to develop any new products or any new software. So you're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to the actual business. It's purely just more of a positioning exercise. And like I mentioned, I look great to the clients because they can see a specific new bit of content that I've created is garnering impressions and clicks and revenue, and I can just keep showing them that page in every meeting, and then they fall in love. So yeah, how to scale in general. These are the two phases that I tend to run with. So there's no real point, in my opinion, in adding additional justified entry points, which is the second phase, until you've looked at the current taxonomy and the current structure of the existing site. But once that's done, that's where you can get to the real juicy bit and start adding new pages in. So yeah, how to fix what's already there for ecom sites. And I do advise people do this regularly, once a month, once every 2 months. Export a list of all your products and categories and the categories that the products are currently in. Look for rogue products, so any products that are in categories that they shouldn't be. Look for opportunity, so any categories where you can add a product that is not already in there. Any category pages which are low on content or low on products, just make a note of that. Try not to BS Google by just creating loads of pages, AI, and essentially guessing what extra categories you could create. It's always better to do it in a data-led fashion and make sure that any category pages that you do have, which you want to drive organic revenue to, or service landing pages, make sure that they're not too similar to other pages and that they are linked to either in the main navigation or from related pages which are important to Google, like home pages, other commercial pages. Very similar when it comes to service-based websites. Export a list of all your services, your sub-services. It's like if you're a plumber, all your plumbing services, then going down to boiler, and the industries you provide to. So it might be plumbing for commercial offices, and then all the locations that you provide to. So if you're in the UK, Manchester, Sheffield, all those sorts of things, and SaaS. And just from this exercise, you'll start to gain ideas for where you might be able to create a new landing page. So, how to add justified entry points. On the next few slides are the optimal guidelines. So, they're not mandatory. If one of the guidelines isn't really followed, but the others are, then it could be okay. And there are a ton of other sort of factors going into this, but these seem to be the most important from my experience. If a new page follows these guidelines, generally I've seen it be successful. And we don't want to be like Oprah for the Americans watching. You get a page, you get a page, you get a page, just creating pages for the sake of it, which everyone's doing, like most people are doing at the minute. Try and be different. So the guidelines for these new justified entry points for an e-commerce site. So these are going to be your bottom of the funnel, mid level of the funnel pages. So new product category pages, new product collections. So general rule of thumb, plus products in each collection or category. Any less than that, it might as well be a product page. The more, the better as well, I generally say. If the parent category, so take shoes, for example, if the parent category is getting impressions for blue shoes, but you don't already have a blue shoes page, and it's not, and the parent category is not ranking in the top 20 positions for blue shoes as a search phrase, then there's definitely a really good potential because Google's already seen that context on your page. If you Google blue shoes and the competition is really weak, as in they've not got many products, the product prices are really poor, they've not got much content on these pages in the top 10, again, really good opportunity. And this is one of the essential bits where I see a lot of sites falling down. So when we've got two product category pages, I always want to see the product listings. So the different SKUs, different products in the category. We want a minimum of 15% difference to every other category and collection. This is what I aim for. So if we've got one collection that's got 10 products in, and then another collection that's got 10 products in, seven can be similar or eight can be similar, the same products maximum, but nine or 10, it might as well be the same category page. We might as well optimize the existing one. For service, it's slightly different, but kind of not at the same time. So, new landing page for service or industry or location. If the primary service, or like plumbing service, is already getting impressions for, I don't know, boiler service in Manchester or whatever it might be, then we've really got a good opportunity because Google's understanding it and make sure you're not already ranking in the top 20 for that page. Again, weak competition, Google the term, Google the phrase, boiler service in Manchester are the top five genuinely fitting the search intent. If they're just plumbing service in Manchester or just boiler service, there's a good opportunity. And look at creating the ones that you've got genuine experience about. Like if you genuinely have done this service for clients or customers and you've worked in this industry and you've worked in this location, always better to write about because you can link out to case studies and the case studies can link back to the service page. Similar for SaaS, new software pages, like sub software pages and new industry pages, and only go after the ones that you've genuinely can provide that service with your software, or you've generally seen that software work well in the industry. So here's a example of me using this technique for a client. So my client kitlocker.com, which is a very large multi-category e-commerce brand in the UK. So this was the process that I followed. So step one, crawl the category pages on the website, set up some custom extraction to garner all the products in each category page and the number of products. So I was looking for specifically category pages with a high number of SKUs, high number of products. Then I checked the Search Console query data for these categories. And one example I found with a lot of products and a lot of impressions and a lot of product variation was the football shirts category. So I was like, there's potential for another entry point into this page. In the football shirts category, I was looking through the search queries, and there's a lot of clever stuff you can do with regex to look for like certain attributes within that category. So you can look for colors, sizes, brands, material, whatever your product may be. So I noticed that the football shirts category page was already ranking well for men's football shirts, women's football shirts in general. but it wasn't ranking well for green football shirts. But it was garnering impressions and it was ranking about 60th on average. This is when I really started to dig deep into it. So I checked the green football shirts variants. Out of the 929 football shirts on that page, 94 of them were green when using the filter. So around 10%. So that's way underneath the 85% that we want to avoid maximum. So this is a good opportunity. Check the competition, search on Google for green football shirts. Look really weak. They were mainly URLs just targeting football shirts, not targeted to green. Didn't mention green in the meta title, the H1. The products were kind of all over the shop. So they were just really broad category pages. I then checked if any other categories could potentially cannibalize this query. So I had a look in Google Search Console, filtered for green football shirts in there, and the only URLs which got impressions and clicks were product pages. So bottom of the funnel pages, not mid funnel like a category page. So I was like, it ticks all the boxes. Let's get the page live. So set the page live, added a featured link on the football shirts page. So to encourage Google to crawl it. And within for a couple of days a week, it started indexing, started getting impressions, started getting clicks. You can see from the Search Console graph there, what as soon as it started indexing, it was off to the races basically. And this is also an indicator of a high quality organic page in Google. It didn't just get impressions and clicks for green football shirts. It got green football kit, green football jersey, green football tops, green and black football kits. So it started to really semantically related terms started to be searched in Google and stumble upon that. And you can see from the positioning all in the top 10 as well. So that single subcategory page, the green football shirts page that I asked to be created, ended up driving £700 in revenue just as a landing page. So people just landing on that page initially and spending £700. I think the green football shirts were only like £20 each. So a lot of people landing on the page and discovering the brand for the first time, and a lot of people going to that page, going to another page, buying there. And it jumped from position 60 for green football shirts up to position 2. You can see the meta title optimized there. So I extrapolated this process out across all of KitLocker's categories, all their parent categories, looking for ones with high number of impressions, high number of products, a lot of product variants, and the organic revenue for the entire site jumped up 72% year on year. And I do have another example of scaling a services website. Not got as much data on this one. It's quite early in the process, but I can put together more on this at another time. But step one for this one, crawled all the service pages for the website, used custom extraction to export the copy, and then I was checking n-grams on each page for potential subservices, any mentions of industries, any mentions of location. Went into Google Search Console. I used regex to filter for service pages in Search Console, and then look for pages with high number of search queries, high number of impressions. Then if there's no other tip that you go away from this webinar with, this is the number one. And it's such like a simple tip that I do regularly and sometimes forget, but there's always opportunities doing this. And it just sounds so simple, but just go into Search Console, get your entire website up and filter search queries for the word for. And I can pretty much guarantee if it's a service-based website, it'll say plumbing for schools, plumbing for offices, whatever it might be. And then if it's product site, it'll probably say like green shirts for football, pink shirts for birthdays, whatever it might be. But there should be opportunities come up just from that filter. So with Select Distinct, the client, I found a ton of impressions for queries containing small businesses, in particular analytics for small businesses. And they already had a data analytics parent service page, but they had nothing for small businesses. So like there's opportunity there. So I created a landing page and it was data analytics consulting for small businesses. And straight away, within a week or so, it was indexing much quicker than other like blog posts that I've seen index. And it started to gather inquiries from small businesses because the competition was so weak. And every other landing page that was created was like analytics for businesses, analytics for enterprise businesses. But small businesses was a real gap in the market. Nothing else happened to Select Distinct service. Nothing really changed on the website apart from the new page and a bit of linking. That was it. Summary. So, sorry, I've got a poll. But yeah, basically, if you're not going to do anything, open up Search Console, check for search queries containing for, and then go through the guidelines that I mentioned earlier. And essentially, just don't BS Google. Just look at your products and services and software with a fine-tooth comb, follow the guidelines, and create new pages. And you can't go far wrong. And then yeah, we've got poll question number 3, Chris. I think I've gone through it quite quickly, but
No problem. That's fine. We've got some questions and things to get to at the end. Spell number 3 was when was the last time that you completely crawled your website? Always an interesting thing to ask people who own large websites. But yeah, when was the last time you completely crawled your website? Today, last week, last month, 3 months ago? I can't remember. It was so long ago. You can also tick that one if the answer's never. And we'll wait to see what the answers come in from that. While we're doing this, if you've got any questions, I can see 1 or 2 in the chat already. If you have any other questions, do feel free to start dropping them in now. We'll get them directed to Joe. I've got a couple that I want to ask. And we'll see what the results of the poll is. I semi-jokingly always say that nobody actually wants a complete crawl of their website, because quite often you find large amounts of crud, but also I think sometimes it's very useful to understand exactly what that crud is. I think especially if you've been working on a website for a long time, right, and you begin to get, what's the best way to put it? You feel like you know everything, don't you? And sometimes it's useful to like remove all your restrictions and everything like that, and be like, oh yeah, there is a lot of stuff here that I am just sticking in my head in the sand about weird linking errors and stuff like that. So okay, so we should be getting the results any second now. A weirdly even split actually. 8% say today, 14% say 3 months ago, 27% say last month, 19%, I can't remember, it's so long ago. Majority of people say last week. Last month is what we tend to see. Spotted Hope Barrett in the chat here saying, recently 10 million page crawl, which took a long time. A complete crawl, never. Yeah. That sounds about right. I a 10 million URL crawl from experience, depending on the site, can take some real time, obviously. But I do find that, yeah, after a while, you begin to find they start to take so long you can't do anything with the data. Cool. Okay. So if you just want to skip forward one, Joe, that would be great. Yeah, so a couple of things here. So number 1, we've got a webinar attendees offer currently there. So if you hit the QR code on your screen with your phone or whatever, we have a half-hour demo with the platform. The platform is brilliant, especially if you have very large websites. Obviously, I don't know if you've ever tried to crawl anything over a few 1,000 URLs with a desktop-based crawler, they do start to suffer, and that's no shade on any desktop crawlers. We use them internally ourselves. There's just, when you are crawling big stuff, there's a slightly different tool for the job. Okay, clicking forward once more. We move into questions. So, just going to quickly find, here we go. So, question number one comes from Angelique, who said, regarding product listings being different between collections, where does the 15% come from, Joe?
From essentially my experience, there's no real guidelines that I found online. I think using logic really, that there's always going to be similarities, and I also do want this to be effective for websites that don't have thousands and thousands of SKUs and thousands of product variants. But in general, that's what I found to be successful. Like if you're creating two different categories, and one's got 100, they've both got 100 products. If 80 of them are the same, um, I think the other thing is as well, just a little bit of a maybe a hint. And again, I've been saying the whole webinar not to BS Google, but it can work with slightly with your product arrangement as well. So if you do have dynamic filtering or dynamic, what's the word, Chris, like product positioning,
Yeah,
um, then if you position the most relevant products at the top for that particular category, that's another thing that Google will be able to identify as being different about that page.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's all in trying to keep the content as unique as possible while still being logical that not every website has a million SKUs.
yeah. And that's it, I guess, right? Is that, that 15% is a good rule of thumb. We're not saying if you check it out and there's only 14%, don't do it. And I think as well, you'll know within your site and within your industry what is correct. Or sometimes you might just find that the differentiator on that page is so unusual that or so strange for whatever reason that there will be a lot of crossover with another page, but you still do need that differentiation there. Especially when it comes down to I always seem to bring up car parts. I think it's because I spend a lot of time with my dad, who is a mechanic. But sometimes it's not so much, oh, well, I'd like a red dress. It's more, I need a 37 millimeter 4.9 whatever. So at those points, you are kind of, they do force your hand a little bit.
Yeah, it's like product specifications. I'm not naive enough to think that every product page needs to have different specifications. Like you can't get away from it.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly drop a question next. Obviously, we've mentioned links a couple of times, Joe, during this, which is great. But let's say you're going on a run of these and creating a ton of new product pages, or category pages rather. How would you go about dealing with linking with them? Because obviously, if you create, or worse, if you create 100 or 1,000, can't put them all in the drop-down nav, right? So how do you go about making sure that those pages get linked to? I actually asked this purely because I'm working with a client at the moment who has they do quite well for or they rank for category term, but with listing pages effectively, or like PLPs basically. So we're trying to get those category pages. They have the category pages, but they're badly linked to. So I'm trying to get as many links to those pages. So I'm kind of asking partially for myself how you deal with linking at scale.
Sure. So it depends is always the
There it is.
formative answer there is it's got to be done. Um, yeah, I mean, we can talk like manually. I don't want to say low level, but low level links from like blog posts that are related and all that sort of stuff. That's anyone can do them. But if
Yeah,
we're talking more from a structural perspective, featured links have always seem to perform really well. So if it's a child category or it's a related category, then having a featured link above the full copy. I'm just thinking like purely e-commerce.
yeah,
Um, one of the best instances was from my old agency for a chocolate website, and in the faceted navigation on the left-hand side, they had like all chocolates page, and then if you clicked a different facet, depending on it, just like a single facet technical element, it would take you to that parent collection,
Hmm.
to that related collection. So that they're two sort of structural elements, and I know that you could kind of programmatically do that, adding featured links and then making sure all your links are the faceted nav. But again, this is another thing where it's like if someone selects multiple facets, so if they're selecting strawberry dark chocolates for Valentine's Day for people over 6'3" or whatever it might be, you don't want to, yeah, you want to keep that as the dynamic page, not the static one.
Cool. Yeah. No, that makes total sense to me. Yeah, it's just it's a nice little trick using those facets. I'm another little thing that we've done in the past is use your crawler of choice to to basically search the site for the keywords. I don't like to, I feel old fashioned now when I say keywords, but there is still a part of it that comes down to we approach it more on an ecology level, but ultimately speaking, red dresses. You know, if you build a red dresses page, search your site for the term red dresses, or red and dresses at least, and see if there's anywhere on the site that there is already mention of those words that it could be linked to as well. I saw a
Yeah,
really interesting study actually about how in content links on sites do quite often or can outperform nav links in terms of getting pages indexed, new pages indexed. So or in actually ranking well. So
interesting.
can't hurt to do a bit of both, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Do a bit of everything,
Yeah.
apart from putting it in white text in the sidebar, trying to hide the keyword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or having one of those drop down navs that you see on some sites where you click the nav and your entire desktop monitor is taken over by one nav because there's 347 different categories in there. Cool. One more question from Tracy is what is your position on using AI for content on a site? I see conflicting suggestions and feel original human created content with expertise will rank higher.
Hmm. That's really weird because that's my mum's name and she knows nothing about SEO, so I'm guessing it's not her. Uh, bless her.
If Norman pops up
Um,
asking questions about a Rover 205, then we know something strange has happened.
yeah. God bless them both. Um, so yeah, so should you use AI content? I don't want to say it depends again, but I'm going to say it's essentially Google doesn't know if content is AI. That's like the opinion and the fact, not the fact, but sort of the way I look at things, like the philosophy. It's all about how helpful the content is for the user. So if you put more and more into a prompt, I mean, you could get to a point where you've put that many prompts in, it it essentially becomes like you've written it anyway. So yeah, use different reference points, use original elements like don't know if it's a product description, for example, like you could know all of the different elements of that product. You could know its entire history, its entire features, its entire uses. If you put all of that into ChatGPT and say, write me a product description, it's 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 going to be effective. Like from my experience, it may need a little bit of tweaking from certain points with EM dashes and all that sort of stuff. But in general, just do not write me a product description for red shoes. Like the more layers you can give it and the more information you can give it in the initial prompt, the better it'll be.
I think as well. So I had this back in the day, and this is years before AI, etc. This is back when we had word spinners and things like that, and sentence dictionary spinners. Um, I used to work for a travel website, and we didn't just want like Mad Lib style content, with insert word here and there. Um, but we kind of realized we were looking at a competitor site and we couldn't work out whether it was somehow spun, AI generated, whatever you want to call it, programmatically done, or human generated, because there's only so many ways you can say this hotel is half a mile from the beach.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
The beach is half a mile away. When it comes to, I think, factual content and stuff like that, it's more of an easy sell. Um, when it comes to especially if you work in quite an unusual niche, or if you do something, if you have a very defined brand that you work with. I mean, if you have a very defined brand, you've probably got something who is demanding to write that content anyway. But I think, yeah, I think generally speaking, I think the content you could use an AI for, and it tends to be factual content where it is statistics and numbers and things that can't be argued with. Do check it hasn't hallucinated anything. But at the same time, yeah, I always struggle a little bit. You can tell when it's trying to be too human, I think, still. And so, if I was trying to just sell a pair of trainers, say something like that, outside of the construction of the trainers, etc., I would be careful with it. Cool. We've got one more question in here from Catherine. How do you connect content? How do you connect content in category and product pages with thought leadership content in the same pillars? Should they be direct child pages, or should they be organized in a blog, or does it depend?
Interesting. So, sorry, just to understand the question a little bit more. So, say it's a supplements brand and they've got a thought leader who thinks magnesium is 10% better than mushrooms, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Are we
the
saying
classic.
the old classic? Are we saying whether to put that on the product page or collection page or create a blog post?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, or potentially even, do you put your magnesium thought content
Hmm.
underneath your magnesium section of the site?
It's yeah, to be fair, no, I completely get this question, and I have these thoughts a lot of the time. It's like, do we just flesh the product page and the category page as much as you physically can? Um, I think again, it depends on the products. So if they are um complex products, for example, that need a lot of explaining and that it's like a large buying process and it's a high ticket item and it's and the product page isn't going to cut it if it just has the specifications on there. Say it's a car, for example, and or it's like a new version of a car, or it's something a bit. The more innovative the product is, I'd say the more effective and the more pertinent the thought leadership piece would be on the product or category page. I think it'd suit that more. But if it's a product that we're more familiar with, and it's just essentially like it's a lower price or it's positioned a little bit better, then it basically, if there's less trust in the products industry, I'd be a lot more inclined to put the thought leadership pieces on the product and category pages to basically do the entire sell from those pages. I think, I mean, the other way of doing it, that's like conceptual thinking, but if we look at it logically as well, Google the Google the thought leadership's pieces search phrases, Google the keywords. If it is that magnesium and mushroom rubbish that I just made up, search for phrases like that. Are they blog posts? Are they featured on product pages? I'm sure if you search the thought leadership pieces title within Google, it'll probably generate an AI overview. Look where them references are going. Are they gonna informational pages? Are they gonna product pages? So see what's already out there for another sort of side of things. Um, and A/B test it as well. Like put add it to the product page, see how it performs. If it doesn't really make any difference, add a heat mapping tool on there, scroll depth tool, see if people are actually scrolling to it and reading it. Um, I think I've answered that about 6 million different ways, but yeah, I've I've given it a go. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, my thought is always to stick it into a blog, and keep the kind of commercial side of the site separate from the content side. But to be frank, that's someone who's been doing SEO for 15 years and has never challenged that thought. So I also appreciate that doesn't necessarily answer your question. We've got time to sneak in one more question. It's a long question. There might be two questions in there, so we'll deal with the first bit and we'll see if we have time to get to the second bit. Hey guys, if you come across a sitemap of around 200 pages and the product pages and category pages have a terribly bad structure, would you recommend a completely new site build? Let's start from there.
So the sitemap's got 200 pages in there, and the taxonomy is terrible.
Everything's a mess.
Everything. Um, in a word, no.
Yeah, neither do I.
Um, I'd just if it's not, it depends on performance. A lot of it depends on performance, but URLs, in my opinion, are not the biggest ranking factor. It's more about what's on page and off page. But it's the like there's I've had numerous instances in the past a couple of years ago where like a client will just change a URL and the URL drops off a cliff just to cram the keyword in there. The key signals that are on the page are much more important than the relevancy. So essentially, restructure the current site. Don't change domain. Don't do a massive migration, and do it section by section.
Yeah, I think that's it's always tricky to make this decision because obviously, we as SEOs, what we want to see is homepage, main category pages, subcategory pages, listing pages at the back of that. Um, but at the same time, certainly what I would say, I wouldn't jump straight to a new site build. Like Joe and I were saying, let's try some linking first and see what happens. Let's try some. It might be a nightmare to deal with internally, in terms of actually managing and keeping track of where everything is and where it's going. But try things first. You may well be surprised what you can get out of it. Um, if none of those things work, then maybe it is time to look at that. But I would say, as Joe mentioned, by doing a complete rebuild, you create a lot of moving parts. Um, it's very it's unusual for a site to come back at the same level as a performance as it was pre-migration for most websites, because Google seems to like the way things were quite often. And I think, yeah, there are probably easier wins you can make just by doing some internal linking, really hammering on the content on your main, and when I say main, your main 10, 20 product pages, the pages that really make money. Second part of that, we'll just quickly sneak this in. Second question, if I may, how much cross internal linking would you recommend for categories and product pages that aren't related and might struggle to get natural internal links?
I'd try and avoid it as much as possible. I mean, look for other points that you can bring it into the blog post, for example, like thought leader pieces that you just mentioned. I wouldn't try and force it. I mean, internal linking from my perspective is more for UX. Well, it's not more for UX, but it's not going to make the. I was just going to say it's not going to make the page crawled as often, but it can do. Um, but again, I wouldn't try and cram it in there yet. Like you'll see product descriptions that have 20 internal links in it. It's just terrible for UX. Doesn't look good on mobile and that sorts of things. I don't think there's any arbitrary kind of number, but I mean, I'd try and get at least a couple going in there. I'd look more for structural links, like I mentioned earlier, that can go into the faceted nav,
Yeah.
featured links, that sort of thing.
That's what I was going to say. I think as a user, if I'm searching for, I don't know, a printer, um, I don't expect to see links in the content and the body to what else to Curry sell washing machines, let's say. If I'm suddenly looking for a washing machine instead, I'm going straight back up to the top of the nav and I'm starting from there again. Users expect that, I think, and you might not have a link in your top nav to again, 8 liter Hoover washing machines. But you start from washing machines and then from there you get down into your category pages. Yeah. Okay, cool. We've squeezed those questions in. Perfect timing. That's the end of that. Joe, I think if you could just click forward, the maybe another slide. Yeah. So if you want to dive deeper, thing number one, Joe Fisher is offering a free 30-minute website review. Links on the page there. Feel free to click that and hit Joe up if anything in the call today has been of interest. We have a new ebook, which is your guide to AI search in 2025. Links there on the page, or you can Google it. And then finally, next webinar is on the 23rd of July, and that's AI Ready SEO, optimizing for meaning, not keywords, which is good. I saved myself before by saying we don't do keywords anymore. And I think that's everything. Thanks very much for attending, folks. There are still people here. It's good to see you, and hope to see you in the next one. And yeah, other than that, I hope it's been useful. Do feel free to get in touch. Joe, thank you once again, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.